Welcome into the final day of our Locked On's Top 50 Most Valuable NBA Players list. I'm Kainani Stevens. This is not your normal MVP conversation. This list was built in conjunction with our partners at BetOnline, ranking players based on how much they influence a game's betting line. So how much does your favorite player really affect the spread? We have the top 50 in the NBA for you. We've gone over it all this week. We are now at the top 10. And make sure you subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get your podcasts so you can go through the whole list and see where your favorite players ended up. We've broken it all down with our Locked On hosts as well, who cover these players and their teams every single day. The number 10 player on BetOnline's list has built a reputation as one of the hardest workers and no-nonsense players in the league. He led the Miami Heat to the Eastern Conference Finals for the second time in the last 3 seasons. Number 10 is the Miami Heat's Jimmy Butler.
After years of proving it when it matters most, Jimmy Butler is definitely a top 10 player according to the BetOnline Top 50 NBA Players list. I'm David Ermil from the Locked On Heat podcast, and Jimmy is finally getting the recognition he rightfully deserves. Look, Jimmy's not the most potent or consistent scorer in this entire list, and certainly not in the top 10. But when it comes to overall impact, by virtue of scoring, playmaking, and his top-tier defenses, Jimmy is absolutely one of the best players in the league. Since joining the Heat 3 years ago, he's already carried the team to the NBA Finals and fell just shy of repeating that this past season. And yes, the Heat have found a way to win with Jimmy on the floor or not during the regular season, but this past postseason cemented him as one of the best scorers in the playoffs, and an argument could be made that he was the best player in the playoffs, period. That's some argument for Jimmy's inclusion in this list, and has been for years. He won't put up 45 points in a meaningless January game against a team at the bottom of the standings, and he won't average close to 30 points for a full 82-game season. But when the stakes are highest and you need to find a way to win, Jimmy Butler is capable of pure dominance.
The next player on our list led the league in assists for the 5th time in his career, as he's now 36 years old. He's found a career resurgence with the Phoenix Suns, the point guard, Chris Paul.
Chris Paul can't be the 9th best player in the NBA. He's not even the best player on his own team. I'm Brendan Clean from the Locked On Suns podcast. And look, Chris Paul was 3rd team All-NBA in 2022, meaning at most he's the 11th best player last season. And now we're a full year past. We saw a year where he averaged over 3 turnovers per game, almost 4 fouls per game in the second round against the Dallas Mavericks. He was not himself, fouled out of games, was not shooting by the end of the series. 2 straight years, if not more, where Chris Paul has been a detriment to the Suns at different points in the postseason. He's also not doing something as high of a degree of difficulty. Getting your own shot is the hardest thing to do in the NBA. Chris Paul has not reliably done that in regular seasons and postseasons. He's incredible running this offense. He's incredible orchestrating a team, but he's not better than Devin Booker, and he's not better than a lot of the other guys on this list. Chris Paul is not the 9th best player in the NBA. I'd probably say he's somewhere closer to 15.
A dramatic offseason ended in no changes at all for the number 8 player moving the lines. He made waves with his trade demands. Then every team in the league scrambled, tried to put together a package to get him, but nobody had enough pieces to get the deal done. Now, he and the Nets are going to try to work things out and run it back, hopefully with better success this time around. You probably already know who I'm talking about. Our number 8 player is Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant should be in the top 5 on the BetOnline Top 50 NBA Players list, and it's pretty easy to see why. I'm Doug Norrie from the Locked On Nets podcast, and Kevin Durant is clearly being underrated by the folks over at BetOnline. Currently, Kevin Durant is number 8 on the BetOnline Top 50 list, behind players like Jayson Tatum, Steph Curry, Joel Embiid. There's some others on there above him as well. While those players are clearly superstars, it's missing just how valuable Kevin Durant was for the Brooklyn Nets last season, and really just how valuable he is in the NBA overall. Last season, without Kevin Durant on the floor, the Nets had a negative point differential and a losing record. Sure, a lot of that was without Kyrie Irving. All of it was without Ben Simmons, but we're talking about an MVP frontrunner the time that he was injured in the middle of the season. The Nets' poor finish, combined with the trade demands in the offseason, have clouded the perception around Kevin Durant, who should be much higher on this list.
Coming up, you might be surprised at how BetOnline ranks some of the best in the league compared to each other. That's next. Locked On's NBA Top 50 Most Valuable Player list is brought to you by BetOnline, the number one spot for all of your online sports gambling needs. The NBA season, as we've been discussing, is only a couple of weeks away. Whatever action you want to get in on, whether it's future bets or if you think you know who's going to take the title this year, you can head over to betonline.net. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. The King clocks in at number 7 this year on BetOnline's list. This season, the Lakers' outlook on the year may still kind of be up in the air, but you know that no matter what, they'll definitely be able to count on our number 7 player, LeBron James.
LeBron James is underrated at number 7 on the BetOnline Top 50 NBA Players list, even while pushing age 38. I'm Andy Kamenetsky, co-host of the Locked On Lakers podcast, and this is why LeBron James is still top 5 when it comes to moving lines. Look, entering his 20th season, this ain't peak LeBron anymore. The cracks, relatively speaking, are starting to show, but the man still holds the fortunes of the Lakers offense in the palm of his hand because that's where the basketball always resides while it's being run. And last season, he was in the 99th percentile for usage rate, and the Lakers' effective field goal percentage dropped from 55.5 to 51.7 while he sat. He assisted on nearly 30% of the Lakers' baskets last season. That's the 98th percentile. And he was in the 87th percentile or higher for various transition situations, off rebounds, steals, etc. And the Lakers want to run as much as possible. Simply put, LeBron's fingerprints are all over everything offensively for the Lakers. And when they're not, everything falls apart.
Our next player led his team to the finals and the Eastern Conference Finals in the last 3 seasons. He made the All-NBA first team for the first time at just 23 years old. And now the Boston Celtics hope they can raise banner 18 with the help of Jayson Tatum.
Jayson Tatum, pretty high on the list, but not high enough as far as I'm concerned. I'm John Corrales. I host the Locked On Celtics podcast, and it's nice that Tatum is at 6th. He's above LeBron and KD and Chris Paul. But I still think he should be higher. Number 3, maybe. Joel Embiid has James Harden. Steph Curry has the entire aura of the Warriors, the world champs. I think Jayson Tatum is being asked to do as much as anybody in the league right now for their teams. He's asked to bring the ball up a lot. He's now asked to distribute a lot more. He's being asked to be a whole lot more than he's ever been. And for the Celtics to get back to the NBA Finals, it's going to be Tatum giving you points, assists, rebounds, defense. He's doing it all. He is as valuable as just about anybody. Okay, Giannis. Yeah, okay, Luka. I get it. After that, it's Tatum handling a majority of the workload for a team that's contending.
With all the young players taking over the league, our number 5 player had to remind everyone who's in charge last season. He's accomplished just about everything you can possibly do on the court multiple times over, and you know the Golden State Warriors will always be in the mix as long as Steph Curry is around.
Stephen Curry should easily be the number 1 player on the BetOnline Top 50 NBA Players list, and I'll explain why in just a moment. I'm Cyrus Sotsis from Locked On Warriors. You can follow me on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. Stephen Curry, the reigning NBA Finals MVP, the reigning All-Star Game MVP, a 4-time defending world champion, a 2-time regular season MVP, including the only unanimous MVP in NBA history, and a player who, in just this past season, for the first half of it, was the early favorite to win his 3rd MVP before Draymond Green's back injury put the playmaking impetus on Steph. At 34 years old, he's still in the prime of his career. His Warriors knocked out the number 4 player on this list, Nikola Jokic and his Denver Nuggets, in the first round in 5 games, and they knocked out the number 2 player on this list, Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks, also in 5 games in the Western Conference Finals. Stephen Curry is the number 5 player on BetOnline's Top 50 NBA Players list, but he should be number 1.
The back-to-back MVP is number 4 on BetOnline's list of line movers with a little bit of everything in his game. He scores, he rebounds, and he does all of it without doing load management, so he plays in most of Denver's games as well. Number 4 is the Denver Nuggets' Nikola Jokic.
Nikola Jokic should be number 1 on the BetOnline Top 50 NBA Players list, and I don't know why we're arguing this. I'm Matt Moore from Locked On Nuggets. When we look at the Denver Nuggets over the past 4 years, here's what we've got. With Nikola Jokic, they've become a perennial contender. They've made a Western Conference Finals. They've won first-round series. They've gone over their win total based off of market expectations every single year, except for the 2020 truncated season. And yet, he's ranked behind Joel Embiid. Part of this is based off of the fact that if you're measuring value, certainly you're going to look at what happens when a player is on the court versus when he's off the court, when he's available versus when he's not available. But compared to other players, Jokic has been one of the most durable players in the NBA. How is he going to be behind Joel Embiid when Embiid regularly misses over 15 games a season due to injury? That may not be Embiid's fault, but it is to Nikola Jokic's credit that he has been available night in and night out consistently. And that's why they've been favored so often. It's why their spread has been oftentimes exaggerated. It's why so many bettors, especially sharp money, comes in routinely on the Nuggets and boosts their ATS percentage up, impacting the closing line. You can't really factor in Jokic's value to the team because he is the entire team. The entire ecosystem of the Denver Nuggets operates around Jokic. You can't really say that for anybody outside of Giannis Antetokounmpo and Luka Doncic. Those are the only two players that are there. And Luka doesn't have the team success, and Giannis Antetokounmpo has had a lot more supporting cast help with Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton versus what Nikola Jokic has had surrounded by him, especially last season with Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray out. I think how you perform with the players around you matters, but to that same degree, Jokic has still thrived even when he's been surrounded by lesser players. So we have Doncic, who gets a lot of stats, great stats, awesome stats. But Jokic is a consummate winner. He has won in this league over the last 4 seasons as a high level as almost anybody else in the NBA. Nikola Jokic should be number 1 on BetOnline's top 50 NBA players list.
Coming up, only 3 players remain in BetOnline's top 50, but how will they stack up? That's next. Our number 3 player nearly won the MVP last year, but because of the Joker, instead, he didn't even make the first team All-NBA. The process may be over at this point, and what remains in Philadelphia as a result is the number 3 player on BetOnline's list, Joel Embiid.
Joel Embiid should be number 2 player on the BetOnline top 50 NBA players list, even over Nikola Jokic. I'm Keith Pompey, the Locked On 76ers podcast, and Joel Embiid is clearly the second most dominant player on this list. You can argue that he is the most dominant, but I'm having him number 2 from that. You can also argue that, Jokic is better, but come on. I get it. He was 2-time MVP, but when you take Embiid off the 76ers last year, they would have been a play-in tournament team, maybe even struggling to make the play-in. He averaged 30 points per game, and believe me, they needed all 30 of those points for them to be successful. Again, if you take Embiid off the Sixers last year, this would have been a team that struggled to make the play-in game.
The youngest player in our top 10 comes in all the way up at number 2 overall and at just 23 years old. He took the league by storm right away and has quickly turned into a perennial MVP candidate, turning in 46 triple-doubles in his first 4 seasons. Number 2, according to BetOnline's expertise, is the Dallas Mavericks' Luka Doncic.
Luka Doncic should be the number 1 player on BetOnline's top 50 list, even over Giannis Antetokounmpo. I'm Nick Engstead from the Locked On Podcast Network. Luka Doncic is clearly the most valuable player on this list. You can make an argument he's not the best player in the NBA, but when it comes to odds makers and bettors, Luka should move the needle more than anybody. Over the last 3 years, the Mavs are 17-20 when Luka doesn't play, and some will say, yeah, but last season in the playoffs, the Mavs beat the Jazz without Luka twice, where Jalen Brunson combined for 72 points. But Jalen Brunson is gone. The Mavs' offensive rating without Luka and Brunson last year was 108.4. That would have been the 4th worst offensive rating in the entire NBA. Unless someone else steps up, the Mavs really can't win games without Luka. And when Luka isn't on the floor this season, it's up to Spencer Dinwiddie to run the entire offense, Tim Hardaway Jr. to get hot, or Christian Wood to find his way on a winning team. That's what you're banking on for the Mavs without Luka. At least the Bucks have multiple All-Stars in Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, who can put up 20 points with or without him.
And finally, the number 1 player influencing the betting lines this season should probably come as no surprise. He showed his ability to take over a game through a championship run 2 years ago. He's hungry to get back to the finals and continues to cement his legacy as well. Above everyone else in the league is the Milwaukee Bucks' Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Giannis Antetokounmpo named number 1 on the BetOnline top 50 list. Was this a shock? Of course not. My name's Kane Pittman, host of Locked On Bucks, and this was the only obvious choice. There is a number of superstars in this league, there's no doubt, but when you put together production, along with reliability, along with work ethic, and along with what you're going to get on a nightly basis, Giannis is in a league of his own. 30 points, 13 rebounds per night. Take it to the bank. He continually improves, and the track record tells you that this guy is going to produce at a high level. 2-time MVP, Finals MVP champion, Defensive Player of the Year. I think the best defender in the league, and just continues to develop the offensive game as well. The Bucks were 6-9 without Giannis last year. That shows his worth. They were also 11 points per 100 possessions. Better with him on the floor. He is an absolute force. Can't be stopped. The only option for number one player in the BetOnline Top 50 list.
That is a wrap for the Locked On NBA Top 50 Most Valuable Players list, according to BetOnline, where the game starts. You can follow your favorite Locked On NBA show to get more analysis on this Top 50 list and where your players that you follow ended up ranking for us. I'm Kainani Stevens. This is Locked On, your team every day.